You have to first understand what email is for and how to think about it. So email is for external communication, people outside of your company. Of course, there's exceptions to the rule where you might want to forward an email to your team member, but email is just an external to-do list that other people can add to. A lot of people think that they've got good email systems, and then when you look at it, they've got 50,000 emails. It's just that 100 are unread, and they think that they only have 100 emails in their inbox, but it's really 50,000.
This is the Impulsive Thinker Podcast, a show for high-achieving ADHD entrepreneurs. Together, we will inform and educate you about how to improve your self-awareness while developing systems, routines, and habits for conquering the entrepreneurial world. Here is your host, Andre Brisson.
Hey there, it's Andre the Impulsive Thinker, and today I have Nick Sonnenberg, the founder of Leverage, and he's also the harvester of great people with his Optimized Group Mastermind, and also the co-host of the Optimized podcast with Jay Abraham. Thanks, Nick, for spending some time with me here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the one thing I do want to do, I am at one of your Optimized Group events here in Pescadero at the MEA campus in Mexico, and it's been a great week, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun down here.
But the main reason I've got you here is you're also the author of the book Come Up for Air, which was actually, I read and applied a lot of your recommendations in it almost immediately, and that has a lot to do with optimizing your team. You just want to give us a quick little outline of your book, and why did you write this book?
Well, I'll say why I wrote it. So for me, time is our most valuable asset. You know, you can make money, but you can't make more time. And, even in my previous life as a high frequency trader where I'm building algorithms and coding computers to trade stocks at microsecond speeds, like a microsecond could literally mean millions. Mm-hmm. And when I started my company, we grew very quickly. I had a co-founder, and we grew it to an impressive size. We grew it, back then we were a freelancer marketplace. We grew it to 7 figures in the first year with 150 people on the team, but we made a lot of mistakes. And so on the surface, to the outside world, it was really impressive, but under the hood, we had all this churn. We had a lot of broken processes with how we delivered. And our org chart was just the two of us. He was head of people, I was head of non-people. And one day we were having coffee, working together, and he taps me on the shoulder and he tells me he's out. He doesn't give me 2 weeks or 2 days notice. He's out literally in 2 days. And in that moment, I'm holding my coffee. I'm thinking, holy crap, we probably are going to go bankrupt here because of everything that I mentioned before. So I had to really think hard. Is it worth trying to turn things around, or is it just too broken and just walk away? And ultimately, I saw a path to turning things around, and I decided to stick it out. But in a 3-month period, we lose 40% of clients, team members, revenue.
Wow, almost half the business.
Yeah, in like literally 3 months. It wasn't like gradual. So this is like a complete shock to the system. Driving my dad to the bank for him to take a second mortgage on his house to loan me money for payroll.
Wow.
I'm cashing out 401ks, right? But I saw a path, and I had a strat. I laid out a strategy to try to clean things up. I thought that the only limiting constraint to cleaning it up was time. And with more time, I could fix this. But it was a catch-22 because it takes time to make time. So how can I figure out how to get more time? So I started analyzing where we were losing time as a company, and where I was losing time as an individual. And there was kind of 3 major buckets. The first was communication. We were just messaging all over the place. It was hard to get any work done with all the pings and dings and nonstop emails. The second was our planning. Like, there was no place to understand where tasks and project status was. I couldn't just click a button and know who was working on what. And the last was our resources, which I was already doing pretty well at in terms of documenting our knowledge. Because when he left, I still had access to like all of our processes and SOPs. Otherwise, we would have for sure gone bankrupt. So I started focusing on that, and very quickly things started turning around. And simultaneously, people started asking me to consult privately. So we were a freelancer marketplace that I was turning around, and then Tony Robbins or Poopery or financial advisors or crypto companies, they started finding out about me, and it started helping them too, teaching them best practices of when and how to use email, Slack, Asana, all the tools I talk about in the book.
So you pivoted your original business into this. Okay, cool.
So funny enough, the IP I was developing to fix the business ended up becoming the business, because I realized that was the bigger opportunity. Like when you think about how work has shifted over the last, I mean, now it's shifting month to month, but over the last decade, there's all these new softwares and tools available. But this is all new territory. Like individual productivity has been around for a long time. People like David Allen laid out a framework in getting things done for individuals to be productive. But this is new territory that hasn't really been figured out yet. And I wanted to be the one to figure out team productivity, on a team or organization level. And, individual productivity is necessary, but not sufficient for teams to be productive. It requires a level of collaboration, coordination, and sometimes the individuals have to sacrifice their own productivity for the greater good of the team. And it was just a more complex, interesting space for me. And I thought that there was an opportunity to really lay out some foundational content and frameworks that could help people for the coming decades.
So you wrote Come Up for Air. And so what you meant when you said about communication planning and resources, that's your CPR framework?
Yeah, and the book is laid out into those 3 parts. Those are the 3 areas every business needs to focus on to be efficient. Doesn't matter if you're a 3-person financial advisor or you're a 100,000-person tech company. You need to communicate with people internally and externally. You have to manage your tasks. That's the planning. You have tasks and projects work. And then you've got resources, which for me is defined by SOPs, standard operating procedures, processes. So it doesn't matter your industry or size. You've got those three buckets, and then there's different tools that help you within each of those buckets.
And by following this framework, which you term as the scavenger hunt, this is reducing the scavenger hunt. You want to expand on that a little more?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Most people, when they write in about what issues they're facing, or when we're doing a sales call at Leverage, a lot of people describe the chaos as a scavenger hunt, where, was that a text message or an email or a Slack message, or what Slack channel was it from? And just stuff is fragmented all over the place. The underlying theme for my book and my philosophy is to be a high-performing team, you need to optimize for speed of retrieval of information rather than speed of transfer of information. And, that's really how you solve the scavenger hunt issue. And, another way of saying it is you want to be passing a baton, not a hot potato.
Right. And then when I read that phrase, ease of retrieval, I never realized that I'd set up a lot of my past processes, my structures, was all about for ease of retrieval because of the ADHD. Yeah. Easy to find, so I don't have to scavenge or hunt for it. So that gave me a lot of clarity. And you spent a lot of time actually in the book talking about communication, internal versus external. And I think that's probably, that was one of the clarifiers I did. We just implemented Teams for internal communication, Reich for work management, but also for project internal communication. And emails is only external now. And I think we've reduced our inbox by 75% almost.
Yeah. Knowing how to use a tool is secondary to knowing when to use a tool and what the purpose is.
And the other thing, I don't know if this is something you intended or realized, but I think a lot of us are always trying to find that one piece of software that can do everything that you've described here. And the way you laid out the framework was actually giving me permission to say, hey, no, I can have a separate software for quoting, CRM, another one for project management, another for work management, but how they communicate to each other is key. At the same time, it really worked as if we're in this one framework, it's one app. If we're in a different framework, it's a different app, and I don't have to be flipping and flopping all over the place. Yeah,
it's a pipe dream to think that one tool can do everything. You don't want to have 100 tools, but you're going to need to have half a dozen or so tools minimum. It's like, people like using email as a Swiss Army knife. They use it for internal communication, external communication. They use it to delegate tasks, sometimes use it to document processes, right? But if I were to ask you every day to chop down a tree, do you want to do that with a Swiss Army knife or do you want to do it with a chainsaw? Right? So you don't want to have 1,000 tools, but if you got to cut down a tree, I'd rather have a chainsaw, right? So I would rather use tools built for purpose if I'm doing something often. In order to work, you have to manage tasks and projects. Why would you want to do that in a tool built for communication versus a tool specifically built to manage tasks and projects, right? There's functionality in those tools for a reason, right? Like you want to hit a button and be able to answer certain questions that you just can't. There's no button to hit an email because it's not built for that.
Yeah, and when in your book, when you're describing that, it just slapped me in the face like, duh. Like, it's so easy, but at the same time, yeah, having the way you communicate just made a lot more sense. And I really appreciate how your book was written.
Thank you.
And it's very well structured to make a lot of sense.
Well, it took 4 years to write that thing.
Yeah, and I saw you when you were launching. Well, you just previous to your launch, you were sharing some of your pre-copies and how proud you were about the book, and it's just well deserved.
Thank you.
And I do gift it out quite a bit. So,
thank you.
Inbox Zero. I know, especially ADHD brains, we have a problem with inbox.
Yeah, I mean, you have to first understand what email is for and how to think about it. So email is for external communication, people outside of your company. Of course, there's exceptions to the rule where you might want to forward an email to your team member, but email is just an external to-do list that other people can add to. And a lot of people think that they've got good email systems, and then when you look at it, they've got 50,000 emails. It's just that 100 are unread, and they think that they only have 100 emails in their inbox, but it's really 50,000. And so we have a framework for how to deal with emails, and actually our Inbox Zero training at Leverage is the most popular because you might be listening right now. You might not have Asana or Slack or Teams. I guarantee you, if you're listening right now, you use Outlook or Gmail or maybe Apple Mail, less common, for your work. And so knowing how to deal with that, it not only saves around 3 to 5 hours a week per person on average, but it also lessens stress and it lessens the probability of missing something important, getting a grip on how to use email properly.
So what do you mean by Inbox Zero? Is that 0 emails in my inbox? Is it?
It doesn't have to be exactly 0, but say less than 20. Doesn't matter if it's read or unread in your inbox, right? And we teach you how to do that. What folders you don't want to have, what folders you do want to have, how to snooze an email so it leaves your inbox, comes back. You know, there's about a dozen or so things that you need to be doing and setting up, and then your email is like on autopilot.
On autopilot. Oh, that's very interesting. Is this something we can, this course, is it a course or an online course?
So at Leverage, we're an operational efficiency platform. And so when you sign up, you get access to all of our stuff, which includes our Inbox Zero. And we've got on-demand courses, and we complement that with live training in a group format with a trainer, as well as office hours if you need further help, and you can just show up and share your screen and ask questions. And asynchronously, you can post questions in the platform and we'll get back to you. So we support Inbox Zero as well as Microsoft Teams, Slack, Asana, kind of all the core tools I talk about in the book. But the most popular and pretty much the best starting point for people is Inbox Zero. Okay,
so you also support a lot of the popular applications that are used out there, not just specifically one type.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very beneficial to the listeners. And they can get to this at getleverage.com?
Getleverage.com.
Excellent. Yeah, for the listeners, I'm going to put a link to the book where you can buy it on Amazon. And I'd highly recommend that you do get the book. Like I said, 75% of our emails were pretty much slashed by the time we implemented our third form of communication tool. Definitely stress-free.
Yep.
A lot less.
That's awesome.
And the whole planning thing, SOPs, the resources is a huge one that I figured out is it reduces how many times people ask you questions.
Yeah.
So any repeat questions, you want to set it up in there. So is there any one last thing you might want to recommend to the listeners?
I would check out my book at comeupforair.com as a good starting point. And then also if you want like real help and you want to accelerate this sounds good to you, getleverage.com. Join the program and get access to our consultants to help you be more successful with all the core collaboration tools on your team.
Yeah, and I spent this week with your team, and man, you've got a really great team of people that can very simplify a complicated context and makes it very clear and understandable.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's, we're both in strategic coach, so who, not how.
Yeah.
And like, there's a million ways to solve a problem sometimes, but finding that right who, sometimes if you find that right who, they might be able to solve a problem, in 10 minutes that might take someone 10 hours, and it's still worse of a solution,
Yeah, and for the listeners here, I think the three things you need to get away from this conversation: email is external communication only, not internal. The IP that fixed your business or Nick's business actually turned out to be the new business. So how about you, the entrepreneurs, listen, take a look at that. What's the problem that you're fixing for yourself that others might benefit from? And that was a huge pivot for Leverage. And ease of retrieval, no more scavenger hunts.
Yep.
And I don't think we have to explain too much more about that. Self-explanatory. So where can people find you, Nick?
I'm on LinkedIn, comeupforair.com, getleverage.com. I have a podcast with Jay, theoptimizepodcast.com. Those are the main ways.
Perfect. And thanks, Nick, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And
had fun hanging out with you in Mexico.
I appreciate it, and I did too. And to you, the listener, thank you very much for listening. The ADHD transformation program has launched, and it's working. Clients are saying it's changed their lives, and I am their ADHD hack. So go to tacticalbts.com/ATJP for more information. I want you to join and learn your own ADHD vocabulary and to learn that you're not stupid and we can make you work effectively.
Thank you for listening to the Impulsive Thinker podcast. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion for the show, please visit theimpulsivethinker.com. The Impulsive Thinker podcast is produced by Tactical Breakthroughs and hosted by Andre Brisson. Remember, ADHD is only a part of you, not all of you.